On this episode of China Uncensored, a 14-year-old girl was monitored by Chinese police 24/7, at home, at school, even in the shower. Her crime? You'll find out when we talk to her. Hi, welcome back to China Uncensored. I'm your host, Chris Chappell. Chinese rights lawyer Gao Zhisheng was once celebrated in China for fighting against injustice. In fact, he was named one of the top 10 lawyers in China by the Chinese government. But they suddenly changed their minds after Gao started going after the biggest source of injustice in China, the Chinese government, or more accurately, the Chinese Communist Party. Authorities shut down Gao's law firm, suspended his license, and spent the next few years imprisoning and torturing Gao and putting his family under house arrest. Yes, China is a country with rule of law. Also, war is peace. Earlier this week, the China Uncensored team was at the Oslo Freedom Forum in New York, a gathering of activists around the world who are standing up to authoritarian regimes like the Chinese Communist Party. One of those activists was Gao Zhisheng's daughter, Grace Gao. She sat down with Shelley to discuss her father's work and her own experiences under house arrest in China.
Thank you so much for being here, Grace. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Can you just tell us a little bit about what you remember about your father?
He's a very loving person, and he has a lot of love towards other people, and he always wants to share his love. He always wanted to help. That's how I remembered him.
And he was, considered one of the 10 best lawyers in China. Why did he care so much about his work?
I think the main reason is he was born in poverty and he was raised in poverty, and he knows how difficult for poor people were like those poor people to live, to make a living in China, and he always wanted to help those people out. And he sensed the main problem is the government, is the system. So I think that's what he devoted to do. That's what he wanted to do.
In the beginning, he was helping a lot of these vulnerable people,
Yeah.
And it seemed like he was being celebrated for it. But then suddenly, it seemed like the government was targeting him. Do you know why that happened?
I think he reached to the core. He was writing open letters to the government, and he was taking sensitive cases, political sensitive cases in China, like persecutions of Falun Gong practitioners, the persecutions of Christians. I think he touched some topics that the government will never allow anybody to touch it.
But he dared to do it anyway.
Yeah.
You were quite young when this was happening. Do you remember any of this?
I was 14. Everything started when I was 13, 14, and it was a chaos. When they kidnapped my father, he was almost never in the picture. So it was 8 secret agents lived in our apartment. They take shifts 3 times, 8 hours shift. And then there were 20, 30, 40 more secret agents outside of the apartment in the community. They were just constantly observing me, my brother, and my mom. They're writing down every activities that we do.
So at the time, they had already taken your dad away.
Yes.
Why were they in your house?
They never give us a reason, even though we kept asking them, but I guess I'm guessing they don't want me or my mom reaching out to, to medias, telling the world what's happening. I guess that's a reason. Or maybe they're just scared.
Were they watching you 24/7?
Yes. They were watching us 24/7, and they have a notebook. They're writing down everything that we did. Like Grace woke up at 7 a.m. and she took a shower, those kind of things. and they are watching everything, even in the bathroom.
Do you think they were trying to scare you?
Yes, I do.
What about when you went to school?
They wouldn't let me go to school for a long period of time until they finally released my father, and my father fought for my rights to go to school, and then they'd be like, yes, we can let you go to school, but there's one condition. The 8 secret agents are following me at all time. They were sitting outside of the classroom, and they're tearing down the doors of the bathroom, and they have to watching everything that I did. So it was really uncomfortable.
It sounds really traumatic, actually.
Very traumatic. And they banned all the students at my school. They cannot bring a cell phone to school. Just think about it. They're all teenagers. Mm-hmm. They're all having their relationships with their lovers or whatever, and they can't bring a cell phone. And the principal, the teachers are announcing this publicly in my school that nobody can talk to me. Otherwise, their parents would be jailed, just like my father.
It sounds like you had a terrible time at school.
Very terrible.
Did the teachers also, not talk to you, or?
Well, she did. She did in a bad way, so that everybody else would hate me.
Why did you have to be hated?
Because I think that's their goal, to make me a bad person, to make me a target, so that everybody would hate on me, so that I feel even more terrible.
How did you get through that?
I just keep telling myself that I'm undergoing all of this because of my father, but I know my father deep in my heart, he is a good man. I don't know the reason why they took him, but I do know he's a good man. So I just keep telling myself I need to survive. I need to be with my family. I need to be there for them. Because at that time, my mom she's not eating at all. She's really angry, and she's keep asking them, why are you doing this to our family? And they are denied to give her any reasons. So she's super upset. She's refused to eat for a long period of time. So my brother was a baby at the time, 2 years old, 3 years old. I think I had to be the rock of my family.
That's a lot of pressure for a 14-year-old.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when your dad was back, were the secret agents still watching your family?
Yes, but not in the apartment, but it was more people outside of the apartment.
So did you ever talk to your father about what was happening?
I didn't. I didn't want him to worry because I can see all the scars on his leg. I didn't want him to worry, so I didn't tell him what was really going on. I suppose he had he suffered more.
Then when did your mom decide to take you out of China?
To be honest, I didn't know when she had the idea, but it was 2009, January, the 9th of the January. That morning, she took us, flee from China.
How old were you?
I was 16, I believe.
Mm-hmm. So 2 years of your family being under
Yes.
constant surveillance.
Yes.
How did you feel about leaving?
Sad. Because on that morning, everything was normal, and somehow my dad wants to hug us, and my dad hugged my brother really tight, and then hugged my mom really tight, and he gave me a really, really tight hug, and then he kisses me on the forehead. I knew, something's wrong. But in my family, we don't talk freely. We never know there are cameras or anything in the room, so we don't talk freely. But I can tell there's something wrong, and then my mom just took us away.
Did you know where you were going?
No.
You eventually made it
Yeah.
to America. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got to America from China?
Not really. I can't give out much details because there are still people using the same method and the same people we used to flee from China. So I think it's much better that I don't see anything.
So essentially, people helped smuggle you out
Yes.
of the country. What was it like to come to America?
It was a lot of adjustment. It was very difficult. We had to make a living, and we had to keep on living. And at the same time, we have to do a lot of advocacy work for my father and rare awareness and attentions on his case. So it's been tough, but it's been tough and it's been good.
How's your life in America now?
Pretty good. Just graduated, and I went travel for a couple months by myself. I learned how to dive. I even go meditation underwater, so it's pretty good. It's pretty peaceful.
It's quite different.
Yeah.
Do you feel like Americans understand what's happening in China right now?
Not really. I mean, yes and no. Of course, American understands how worsened the situation is, the human rights situation is in China, but they can't do anything. They can't do too much about it because, the economic factors and the other factors, so yes and no.
So after your mom brought you guys to America, did you lose contact with your father?
Yeah, right away, almost right away. And I forgot how long was that, but 2 years after he was, we remained in contact for, I don't know, a couple weeks, and then he was off, and then he was somehow appeared, and then he was off. It's just like this, on and off, on and off. So we're kind of used to this.
Mm-hmm. When's the last time you talked to your father?
A year ago.
Did you talk on the phone?
Yes. Usually we call. Okay, so my father is located in a small village where he was born. It's in Shanxi province, and he's under house arrest. So usually we call his big brother, and if he's around, so the big brother will call him to talk to us. If it's not, then it's bad luck. We can talk to him that day. Sometimes my father would carry the cell phone and climb up to the mountains to get a better signal to talk to us. But it's kind of useless because everything we talk about, the Chinese government seems this as political sensitive, so they usually just cut it off.
So they can actually cut off your.
They pretty often actually. They cut off the phone pretty often, so that we know we reached into some sensitive topics.
Mm-hmm. Sensitive topics like how are you doing, Dad?
Yes, that's the main question. As every time when I ask him how are you, is your health okay? Are you feeling good? They cut off the line. So this kind of question my father cannot answer.
That sounds incredible.
Yeah.
But you haven't even been able to do this for a year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know where your father is now?
No, it's been a year. We don't know where he is.
Does that mean he's probably in a prison somewhere, or does?
I think he must under a house arrest or something, but we don't know the location, and the Chinese government, they denied that they have him, but it's almost a short answer that they have him. So, yeah.
Have you ever thought about what it would be like to go back to China?
I tried. I tried a couple times, but I was denied. to give him a visa. And I had my internship January in Hong Kong this year, and I also tried to get my visa from Hong Kong, at Hong Kong, and I was denied too. So,
do you feel then safe in the U.S.? Like, do you feel like they know who you are, the Chinese government? Are they still interested in you since they've denied your visa to go back?
Well, yeah, that's why I was telling you that I don't like to have topics about China. I don't talk about it. It makes me feel safer. It makes me feel like I'm not expose myself too much. Because in my father's book, Stand Up China 2017, he said the secret agent are telling him that they have people around us in America to watch our lives, and then so they can give my father some information to update, like we want you to surrender because your family in America, they're doing really poorly, this kind of thing. So we tend to not expose ourselves too much because we don't feel that safe.
Have you actually had problems directly?
Not really, but it just, we're very alert.
It's pretty tragic that even thousands of miles away, the Chinese government can still make you feel unsafe and make your father feel threatened. Have you thought about what you'll say to your dad the next time you see him?
Nah. No. I almost never thought about this question. Because he's very stubborn in a way. He refused to come to America. He thinks, China is his battleground. He has to stay there. He has to stay there for people to know that there are somebody are fighting for human rights and justice, and there are people are fighting for them in the dark. So I don't know when I will be able to see him. So this question, I almost never thought about it.
Is there anything that people can do outside China to help your dad?
I think if you pray, please pray for him. And I think it's important for people who are outside of China to know that not just my father, not just an individual case, but there are a bigger problem behind it. It's the system. It's the communist. It's this system. In 1,000 ways, it's still wrong.
Thank you so much for talking to us today, Grace.
Thank you.
I want to give a special thanks to the staff at the Oslo Freedom Forum who put us in touch with Grace Gao and helped us set up this interview. Oh, and thanks to Shelley for actually doing this interview, and to Grace for being willing to talk with us. Over the next couple of weeks, we'll have even more interviews we shot at the Oslo Freedom Forum.